Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thanks again for popping by. Now I'm here with the long overdue labour story. So if you weren't aware already, then I did throughout my labour do some live updates over on the Channel Mum Facebook. So I will link all of my live updates down below, so if you miss them then you can rewatch them over and over again, and there's also a cut down version which I'll make sure I'll put that link down below as well. I'm going to start with the Sunday night. So Sunday the 7th of January, before I went to bed I said to my husband Dan, something doesn't feel quite right. I'm not entirely sure what, but something doesn't feel quite right. I think I knew from then that it wouldn't be long before something kicked off. Good morning everyone, it's Monday the 8th of January and it's 6:45 and I've been up all night. I started having contractions sort of Sunday night, but they weren't like bad or anything. And then about 10 to midnight I woke up because they were a bit more intense and I could feel them. So they were only happening every sort of 6 to 10 minutes, which was really annoying. They weren't getting any closer together, so it was almost like they were happening and then they'd stop. Oh sorry, I'm just getting another one. Bear with me. Since I've woken up this morning they have got a lot closer together, so things are starting to happen. I've had my show as well, so I know things are moving in the right direction finally. After like, this is 8th day. I'm 8 days overdue and I can't believe it. So yeah, Dan is going to stay off work today just in case we need to go in. My labour with Marco was really quick, so they say that it could potentially be quick again, so I just got to be on high alert, and I've warned our childcare so they are aware that if they get a call they need to be here. So yeah, I'm going to try and film as much as I can, just for my sake really, just so I can remember it. This is the last time we're going to be doing it, so I called the labour line and explained what was happening, and she said, well, if you can manage it at home then take some paracetamol and call us back if anything progresses or worsens, then let us know. They're still kind of contracting. They were getting a bit closer together, they were getting a bit more painful, enough to kind of take my breath away. So it was about 1 o'clock, I think we decided to go to the hospital. So I thought I'd pick up the camera and update you at every single thing, but my mind's been very preoccupied. So we are in hospital, as you can see by the beautiful surroundings, and nothing's really happening, which is really frustrating. I mean, stuff's happening with me, but it's not moving forward. Basically, we ended up, excuse me while I sit down, we ended up coming to the hospital because everything was getting a little bit more intense and a little bit sort of more regular, and got here and I was checked and I was only 2 centimetres, so was told to sort of go for a walk around, get some lunch, just keep active. So I have been, and came back after an hour and still nothing. Still sort of 2-3 centimetres, so it sort of barely moved really, which is really disheartening because Marco was so quick. But I'm getting regular strong contractions, but it just doesn't seem to want to do anything. The baby is so stubborn, and I've obviously made such a good home for him over the last, what feels like, years. Obviously I'm 8 days overdue. Yeah, I thought things would have kicked off by now, but they haven't, and it's so frustrating. So anyway, the hospital are not busy at all. They said that I can stay here and have the room because there's basically no one else here, and they were a bit concerned about sending me home because I don't live around the corner from the hospital. I am about sort of 25 minutes away. Excuse me. Oh, I'm exhausted. This has been happening since like midnight last night, and it's now 5 to 3 on the 8th of January, so Monday the 8th of January. So yeah, they said that I could stay here in the room because they're not busy and they're a bit concerned about sending me home in case it all does happen so quickly and I don't get my antibiotics, or with Marco I lost an awful lot of blood and needed to have a blood transfusion, so obviously they don't want me to go home and give birth at home, because if that happens again, I was very poorly last time, so yeah, obviously they want to avoid that. There's not really much else I can update you on. I'm still with Bump and I am bouncing on the ball currently. Bump is huge. So yeah, I'm feeling a bit deflated, a bit frustrated, kind of hoping things just get going really. I'm bouncing. I've turned it down obviously because I'm filming, but I've had the radio quite loud and I've been dancing along to some of the songs that have come on just to try and keep moving. So I was really fed up by this point, you know. I'd been there, I think overall we were in the hospital for about 5 hours and nothing had changed, so I just kind of said to her, well, like, what do I do? Do we wait here? It could be here for hours, or if I go home, then what? It could happen really quick. She said she can't tell us what to do, but she's gonna leave it up to us. Obviously, I wanted to be at home with the boys. I wanted to put them to bed, kind of just keep their routine as normal as possible. So we discharged ourselves. Yeah, the midwife let us go, and on the way back I said to Dan, hit every pothole, hit every speed bump to try and get this baby out of me. And we stopped off at the M&S garage on the way back, I remember, and I had a cheese and onion sandwich, and I was contracting really bad on the way back. It just seemed to be getting worse. So anyway, we came back. My mother-in-law and my mum were here watching the boys. So my husband went upstairs and ran me a really hot bath, just so I could go and relax in the bath for a bit. So I did. I think this is about 6:30. So I relaxed in the bath all for about maybe half an hour. That was all I could bear really, because obviously by this point I was still contracting a lot, and it was quite painful. I think I took some more paracetamol just to kind of take the edge off, but it obviously doesn't work. Paracetamol never gets rid of my headaches, let alone when you're in labour. I got out the bath and bunged some clothes on, and I popped the boys to bed because I heard Lorenzo was a little bit upset, so I tucked him in, read him a story, and yeah, just helped my husband put the boys to bed. My mother-in-law had gone home by this point because she started to feel a bit ill, so my mum was here and she said she was going to stay here for as long as we needed her, because if anything happened in the night, at least she was here. She'd already packed a bag and she was already prepared, so yeah, so she stayed with us and didn't go home, which was handy, and I'm glad she did, because after the bath I came out and I did one more Facebook Live, and I think this was around 8 o'clock in the end, and I remember I stopped the Facebook Live at 8:10, and baby boy was born at 8:50, so it really wasn't long, and it kind of all kicked off. So basically I got out the bath, put the boys to bed, came back, did the live here, and as I ended the live I literally jumped up, flung over the bed, and was just breathing, just trying to breathe through it, because by this point it was really painful and I felt so much pressure every time I had a contraction, so I knew things were heating up a little bit. So my husband came up and he said, is everything okay? And I was like, no, like, things are getting worse. I really feel so much pressure now. And he like basically rushed and was like, right, get your shoes on, we're going back to hospital. So I waddled downstairs as fast as I could, got my shoes on, and said to my mum, right, we're off to the hospital again now. The boys are in bed, so just, you know, stay here, keep your phone on you, just so we can sort of update you. So as I was getting in the car, my husband was on the phone to the labour line to let them know that we were on our way back. And as I was getting in the car, just before I got into the car, my waters broke. It wasn't a big pop, it was just like a little gush, but I'd had that before with Nico and Marco. Obviously my waters broke very early with Marco, so I knew what it felt like, and it definitely was my waters. And so Dan was on the phone to the labour line already and said to the midwife, scrap that, we're not coming in, you need to send us an ambulance, we're not going to make it in time. So I then went back into the house, and by this point my mum was stood at the back door and she went, oh my god, what's going on, is everything okay? I don't think I even said anything to her. I think Dan sort of filled her in, and I think she knew like what was going on by this point. She knew that we were going to have the baby at home, so I think deep down she was panicking a little bit. The midwife was really great though. She stayed on the phone whilst calling the ambulance. I took my shoes off, I got upstairs, I got straight on the bed, and as I got on the bed I had another contraction and pop, my waters just broke on the bed. By this point as well, I was hearing the midwife on the phone, because Dan had it on loudspeaker in the end because he was rushing around trying to get loads of stuff. So she was saying, you know, don't leave her, make sure she's not on her own, but then she was also saying, get towels, get this, get that, make sure, you know. And Dan was like, well look, I need to leave her to get towels. So he got loads of fresh towels. Luckily I did a towel wash like a few days beforehand, so we had loads of clean towels, which was great. So yeah, Dan got loads of towels. I think he even got a shoelace, because the woman said obviously get something to tie the umbilical cord with, because this baby was coming quick. So yeah, my waters broke on the bed, and I remember just feeling the need to push so quickly after my waters went. Every contraction I needed to push. And obviously when you call for an ambulance, they send a first response team to get there before the ambulance. By the time the first response lady turned up, baby's head was out. So Dan basically delivered his head while I was kind of on the bed, and I think Dan was just at the end of the bed just looking in absolute shock horror because he couldn't believe that this baby was coming at home. Obviously I needed to be in hospital because I don't know if I mentioned, but I had group B strep, and I had planned to have antibiotics intravenously during labour, but I couldn't have that because I was at home. So that was a bit of a worry. And obviously they say if you don't have antibiotics during labour, when the baby's born and passes through the birth canal, they could contract the infection, and yeah, it can be quite nasty. So I was panicking so much about not having my antibiotics. So anyway, yeah, his head was born, and I remember his head was out for ages, and he was actually back to back. So I had a back to back labour, which if you've had, you know, is not nice at all, especially with no pain relief. Obviously I took paracetamol beforehand, but we had no ambulance crew here or anything to give me anything. So I did the main part without anything, and I just remember that pain will never ever leave me, and I think I've scarred my mum for life as well. So yeah, his head was delivered, and then after his head was out, I believe the first response lady turned up, and I think the first thing I said to her was, give me the gas and air, but she only turned up with half a canister, I believe, of gas and air, and I'm a bit of a hogger, so yeah, I was a bit gutted by that. But I guess the hard part by then was already done, but I just kind of wanted it to help me control my breathing, because I think by that point I kind of just lost all control, because I was in shock that he was coming at home. I was worried about not having the antibiotics. I was worried he was gonna be born poorly. You know, all that kind of stuff was going on in my head, so I think I lost focus a little bit. So the gas and air, when she did turn up, kind of got me back into my deep breathing and helped me out a lot more, but he was actually stuck and his head was out for a very long time. I remember hearing the midwife on the phone saying, you need to get her on her back, because this baby's head's been out too long now. So I was on my knees on the floor leaning over the bed, and I think I was sucking on the gas and air so hard I snapped the plastic in my mouth, and my husband said that I split my lip, and apparently my whole lip was just bleeding. I don't remember any of it, and I don't remember sort of seeing any blood around this area anyway. You know, the bed and the floor was another issue. So yeah, anyway, midwife on the phone said, you need to get her on her back to push the rest of the baby out. So I remember I was kneeling on the floor thinking, now I've got to get on my back with a baby hanging out of me. How am I going to do that without squishing his head? I managed it in the end anyway. I just kind of like rolled my shoulder and then rolled onto my back with my legs like akimbo, but yeah, how glamorous. And so I got onto my back, and literally within the next push, I think I just pushed the rest of him out, and he just literally like sprung out. But he came out extremely blue and very, very floppy. And the poor first response lady had never delivered a baby on her own before. She's delivered babies, but with the help of a midwife. So she's just kind of there to, you know, check the mum to make sure the mum's okay. I don't think she's actually fully delivered a baby before, but she's been there whilst a midwife has delivered a baby at home. So bless her, she was the nicest lady. So yeah, she was panicking so much. I could see the panic on her face, even though she was kind of looking at me smiling, you know, rubbing him so hard, patting him. She was trying everything in her power to get him to cry and to breathe, because he was so blue and he was so floppy. And I think all I remember saying to Dan is he going to be okay? Because it's so scary to not have all the equipment around you that you would need. I think in the end, the paramedic, the first response lady, gave him a little bit of oxygen just to sort of help him on his way, and then all of a sudden it felt like minutes and minutes and minutes, and it probably was, and it was probably only like a minute, but you know, when you're just laying there just praying for them to let out this scream. Yeah, and then all of a sudden he just screamed, and I was like, oh my goodness me, thank the Lord that he is okay. Yeah, so he cried, and she wrapped him up for me and literally just bunged him on my chest straight away. And I was just hugging him, and then I remember having to deliver the placenta, but he was actually attached to the placenta and to me for about half an hour. So it was about half an hour after he was born. The midwife eventually turned up, and she kind of turned up and was like, oh, the baby's here. Then I delivered my placenta. She thought I delivered it as a full, but when she kind of like laid it all out on the bed, she realised that there were a couple of bits missing. She described it as raggedy around the edges. So I had like little slithers left inside me, and apparently even if you've got like a little slither, it's classed as, you know, not all coming out, so your uterus doesn't contract back down again. And I had a huge bleed with my previous labour and needed a blood transfusion, and it was looking like it was going the same way this time round. As you can imagine, our bed literally looked like a scene from a movie. It was, I just can't even explain, there are no words to explain the craziness that was going on in our bedroom. So yeah, the midwife turned up half an hour after he was born and eventually cut the cord. So I mean, it was good for Francesco to have the delayed cord clamping. It was really, really good for him. It was 40 minutes after he was born that the ambulance crew turned up. So these two guys walked in and was like, oh, congratulations, blah blah blah, and you know, they were typical men. And I remember one of them saying, so have you got like those things that you need when you're on a period? Meaning like a sanitary towel. So I told Dan where everything was. I'd had it all packed, all ready to go, obviously. All three boys stayed asleep. They were all fast asleep. They didn't wake up. I don't know how, because I believe I was screaming the house down. Yeah, anyway, the ambulance crew turned up, managed to get me dressed, get me up, and how I walked down the stairs I will never know, but walked down the stairs, and then I got into the ambulance and I started to get worse. I felt like I had an infection, like it was awful. I felt like drowsy, sweating but shivering. I remember so many midwives just coming around me, because so many people said, this is your fourth baby, you're going to be treated like a queen, because the after pains is going to be horrendous. And I was thinking, oh my god, that's all I want to hear. Like, I don't want to hear that. Yeah, so many people were around me. I obviously had Francesco by this point, and they knew that I wasn't right. I'd lost all my colour, and I think the midwife, obviously she came with, she said the placenta came out, but I'm not 100% sure whether it all came out. It looked a bit raggedy. So I was examined, last thing you want when you've just given birth. I was examined and I had loads of little slithers left inside. So basically I had to have them manually removed, which is like, I would say it's worse than labour. For me, in my experience, Oh, it was awful. So they took Francesco off me, and Dan, they were doing the weigh-in and everything like that, checking. They swabbed him for the group B strep. So Dan was with Francesco, and I remember a lovely midwife assistant, like nursing assistant, came and held my hand, and she was squeezing my hand, and I remember then just getting her in a headlock, because this doctor literally went in up to her elbow and was scraping around, and it was, the pain I cannot describe, was horrendous. So I had this other woman in the headlock, and they gave me gas and air. Yeah, I was hogging the gas and air again, because it was just awful pain. For ages it seemed like it was going on, and I remember crawling up the bed with this woman in the headlock with the gas and air in my mouth, thinking, oh my god, just get out of me already. I don't, like, I've had the baby, just leave me alone. And she just said, like, you need to stop moving, because we need to get this out of you, because if you don't, then you will bleed out. So I was like, right, okay, just focus, breathe. Francesco's safe. I need to be safe now. So I think I still had the lady in the headlock by this point. And when they'd eventually finished, it was almost like I felt fine straight away. It was so weird. She finished, and she said, right, now let her go. Let her head go now. So I remember just letting her head go, and I looked at her and I just burst into tears, and I was like, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry I hurt you. Like, really hysterically crying, and she just gave me a cuddle, and she was like, look, don't worry about it. What you've been through and what you've just gone through, you know, I deserve to have a headlock. So yeah, and it was weird. I felt fine after that. I did bleed out a lot, but not enough to warrant a blood transfusion, which was amazing, because I didn't want to have to go through that again, because it's not really a nice experience. But me and Francesco both had hourly checks for 12 hours, I believe, just to check for the group B strep. And obviously I was told to check him at home again regularly, because you can get late onset group B strep. Yeah, he was born in our bed at home so unexpectedly and so quick. And even though it was a massive shock, and it was just nothing but worry, it was in a way the most amazing experience to have, and to have that at home. And now every time I come into my bedroom, I'm like, oh my god, like, Francesco was born in here, like, on this bed. It was just, it's insane. So yeah, it was unexpected, it was worrying, it was crazy painful, but it was just the most surreal, amazing experience ever. Yeah, that was how Francesco was born. That was how he was born. I hope the story was interesting for you, and remember to check out my live updates. I'll put the links down below. So there's a shortened down version, and they're all separate updates. I think there was 5 overall. Francesco is the happiest little guy. He is just so gorgeous, and I'm totally and utterly obsessed with him. I cry when I look at him. How sad is that? So I am so glad that I got my home birth in the end. Obviously it wasn't expected, and yeah, but now looking back, it was just the most amazing, incredible experience, like, ever. So yeah, that is how Francesco came into the world. I hope you enjoyed it, guys. I hope you found it helpful, or maybe not so helpful, I don't know, but I hope you enjoyed it anyway. Give me a massive thumbs up if you did, and I would love for you to subscribe and follow my journey if you don't already, and you're loving my videos, then please subscribe. It is absolutely free, and also click on the bell so you get notified whenever I upload. I will see you in my next video, guys. Thanks for watching. Bye.